Y'all were talking on the way home from Auburn about a pretty interesting hypothetical here. With this Georgia offense, we talked about how much Georgia loves Brock Bowers. Everyone on this show loves Brock Bowers, other than the Kentucky fans that are hanging out with us tonight. Would you rather have Darnel Washington back in this offense, or would you rather have Kenny McIntosh back in this offense?
My first thought on this was a no-brainer. It's still the same pick, but it's not as, I think Georgia fans, and listen, I'm a big Darnell Washington guy, and I think Georgia fans romanticize him just a little bit. I think they kind of puff him up. Darnell's a great player. I think he changed some things for a lot of guys. You can't make me take a 1,300-yard guy. I mean, this is a guy who basically accounted for like 80, 85 yards a game easy for Georgia last year. 1,300-yard guy like Kenny McIntosh out of the office. I want to say it's 1,330 or 1,370. He changes things. I think a bigger thing that Georgia is missing right now than Darnell Washington's blocking, because let me tell you something. The Mike Bobo screen game, 7.7 yards per catch, for yards per attempt. The Todd Monken screen game, 6.3 yards per attempt. All right, just a little stat there. So when Carson Beck throws the screens, 7.7 an attempt. When Stetson Bennett threw it last year, it was 6.3. That to me, makes the kind of the myth that Georgia's perimeter blocking is atrocious, and it misses Darnell Washington that way. I think that digs into that a little bit. Now, I would take Washington back if you offered him. I'm not saying I'd turn it down. But I would say Kenny McIntosh, without a question, would be the guy I'd bring back. 1,300-yard guy, big plays in the passing game with the tunnel screens and the stuff he can do for you there. Listen, if you honestly, if you look at it, 7.7 without a Kenny McIntosh, without really a running back doing a whole lot for you in that way, I think Georgia would be a lot more lethal with Kenny McIntosh.
1333 there for McIntosh last year. I'm going with the chat here, and I'm agreeing with Washington as your guy, because I think that the way that he opens things up with the struggles that Georgia has had running the ball, whoever's in the backfield, I just obviously. You'd love to have an extra running back in there, just, in terms of a body, a capable running back like Kenny. But with the guys that you've got and how limited that you are, having a guy like Darnell to pave the way would be big for me. And I think he would open up the passing game too, because, like Uncle Glenn says, McIntosh doesn't get that kind of yardage on some of those screens without Washington. And I don't know that Ladd would either, just how good of a blocker he was. I've been really impressed with Ernest Green and his ability to block in space, but if you're able to combo those two and, open doors for Brock Bowers or Ladd McConkey or, Dylan Bell, Mekhi Muse, Dominic Lovett. There's a lot of guys. Georgia has shown that they will throw that screen without Darnell Washington. Just imagine if Darnell Washington was in place of Oscar Delp and he was the one blocking for them.
Yeah. So
counterpoint here, Georgia's averaging 1.5 yards more per screen pass than they were last year. So,
but is that because of? I mean, I think that's more because of the players that they've got on the receiving end than it is the blocking that they've had.
My point is that they're just not missing. I don't think they're missing Bowers and Washington as much on the perimeter as maybe we think. I do think they miss him in the run game.
They're missing him in that outside zone and run game type stuff.
Yeah, they don't run a whole lot of outside zone, but I do think they're missing him in the run game some. Yeah, I do think that, but I think Kenny McIntosh would open some things. It's definitely a good debate. I wouldn't have brought it up when we were driving if it wasn't worth talking about. And I definitely, listen, I'm a big Darnell Washington guy. I think it's great. But I think ultimately, you've got right now, as your quarterback and your offensive coordinator are kind of coming together. I think Bobo's doing a really good job, especially these last 2 or 3 weeks. kind of figuring it out and getting it going, as, kind of dealing with Beck, who starts slow. I mean, that's just all there is to it. And I think he's got to get that fixed. I think a guy that would help him out a lot there is a guy like Kenny McIntosh, who you can just kind of raise up, get it to automatic 6, automatic 7 yards and make it happen.
It is a great debate. It is. And I think when you look at where Georgia is right now, it's hard for me not to pick Washington just because of the physicality on the line of scrimmage and seeing how big he is and seeing how he could dominate everybody. And Georgia's missing domination a lot of times consistently. And Darnell was consistently dominant. And the running back, the backfield, maybe getting a little bit more healthy. Maybe Kendall Milton is back this week. If he's back, I got a gut feeling that guy's going to have a big game because I saw him have a big game against Kentucky last year. And maybe that's just my human error and recency bias against Kentucky. But I feel like as you're getting more healthy in the backfield, you're still going to need some help up front. And that's why Darnell's appealing to me. But I definitely hear what Stacy's saying here. Kenny's burst out of the backfield. He didn't need the best offensive line. Maybe he didn't, but he had a pretty good one.
Yeah.
But yes, his burst
and the thing
was
is, you
special,
can't
and he was a huge
lean
part of the
on
offense, a home run hitter. So it's a great debate. And I think, we're giving a lot of credit to Brock Bowers. Let's say Georgia doesn't three-peat. Maybe Darnell Washington was a pretty important key to that, saying that facetiously. But
Sure.
it is a great debate, guys. And I know Georgia fans would love to have both of them back, but we'll see what happens this week against Kentucky. Are we hearing anything on Kendall Milton this week?
Sounds like Kirby's comments on Monday made it sound like, he's healthy, but they're trying to get him in shape. One of the things, though, about that debate that I think makes it so interesting is you can't really lean on, well, we're short at tailback or we're short at tight end, because you're short at both. I mean, you're kind of thin at both positions right now. So, that's the one thing. Hey, we need tailbacks more. We need tight ends more. That's one of the things that really got me thinking about it, because I was having the debate in my mind, and I just got to the point where it's like, Georgia needs a running back. And I was like, wait a minute, Georgia needs a tight end. Oscar Delp's not playing that great. And they use 3. I think Milton will be back, soon. And I think having him back, I think a lot of Georgia fans kind of get in their feels about his lack of availability sometimes and the injuries. I guarantee you're no more frustrated about it than he is, and just kind of get themselves to thinking, well, he's not very good because he plays at 75% as often as he does because he's always dinged up. But telling you, I went back and I was looking at something today. I was trying to look for a specific formation, and I went back and I watched the Peach Bowl, and he had a couple of runs in that game that were attitude runs and good players. So I thought that was
against LSU too.